All right, I'm John Fischer. This is The Artist's Way for Parents, Raising Creative Children by Julia Cameron. Chapter 1, Cultivating Safety. Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up. Pablo Picasso. Creativity is born in generosity and flourishes where there is a sense of safety and acceptance. For our children to thrive, we must cultivate this safe environment. To do this, we must be willing to take steps towards our own creative and spiritual health as well. Taking care of ourselves, we give ourselves the energy and clarity to take care of our children. Like the advice we receive on an airplane or administer our own air mask before helping the children beside us. We must nurture ourselves to set the example for our children, because a happy creative home grows from a happy creative parent. We must begin by focusing on finding creative approaches to the common and challenging realities of the parenting role. With a few simple tools, we can embrace this journey with a light touch and an open heart, establishing a lively and contagious sense of spiritual safety in our home. Setting the stage. Children mimic what we do. Playing with trucks or taking care of dolls, they imitate adult behaviors from a very young age. They also absorb and reflect our attitudes and emotional states. When we're stressed, they pick up on it. When we're joyful, they mirror our delight. When we feel safe, our children feel safe. When we feel safe, our children feel safe. When we model genuine enthusiasm, our children learn to have passions. It is one of the great joys of parenting to notice the ways in which our children learn from our example. We as parents provide the example for how a life is lived. Desi, mother to 6-year-old Aaron, works as a nurse, and her husband Eric has a career as a firefighter. Aaron has a collection of toy fire trucks, gifts from his dad, that he counts among his most prized possessions. He's absolutely sure that he's responding to emergencies when he plays with those trucks. Desi laughs. He says he's a hero like Daddy. He's right. Aaron's connection to his toy fire truck is actually a connection to his dad. When Dominica was in kindergarten, I walked her to and from school daily, although I varied the route. Our favorite way to go involved passing a fish store. Taking Dominica by the hand, I led her into the dark interior. I pointed her towards the tank where a matched pair of angelfish floated. Pretty but mean, I told her. Next, I led her to a tank containing a flotilla of swordtails. As we approached, the fish made a mad dash to hide behind the coral formation. Pretty but shy, I told my daughter. Mommy, look, she piped up, leading the way to a tank full of fan-tailed goldfish. As we approached, they swam closer, as interested in us as we were in them. Pretty but not shy, I explained, making a mental note to myself that Dominica was old enough to enjoy a fish tank. For her 6th birthday, I gave her a pair of fan-tailed goldfish in a tank the size of a small TV. She was delighted with the present. Years later, when Dominica went away to college, she got a fish tank for her dorm room. It makes it feel like home, she explained. I smiled to myself, remembering her walks to school and marveling at how that simple stop had made an impact. As much as we must make a conscious effort to reach out to our children, we must also make a conscious effort to reach out to ourselves, paying attention to our own needs and desires. As parents, we often make the mistake of thinking we need to be completely available to our children at all times. Anything less would be bad parenting. But what exactly are we role modeling for our children if we abandon ourselves in the name of generosity? Becoming a parent is an act of selflessness indeed, but we must still maintain our sense of self if we are to have anything to give to our children. When my daughter was a toddler, I was a single mother. I had the job of supporting us with my writing. I couldn't afford not to write, and so I became a writer with a child. I taught myself how to write with my daughter's crawling underfoot. Mommy's writing, I would say. As I set her to play with her toy horses, I learned to dash my thoughts to the page, writing quickly. Mommy, my daughter would interrupt. Mommy's working, I would reiterate. Mommy's writing. Soon my daughter learned that I would give her my attention once I was finished with the page. She began to interrupt me less and to turn her own focus to her playthings. Soon she realized I'm playing to be a boundary, just like I'm writing. She modeled the concentration that she saw me display. With a little jolt, I realized I was teaching my daughter valuable autonomy. As I dipped into my imagination to write, she dipped into her imagination to play. When I finished my sprint to the page, my daughter would then claim my focus. Which horse is your favorite? I would ask her. She liked the golden palomino. That's my favorite too, I told her. And together we would place the little statuette in the shoebox that served as a stall. How do you find time to write? My friends would sometimes ask me. I told them of Domenica's toy horses and the boundary I set. Mommy's writing. But doesn't Domenica resent it? Asked another mother, who set no boundaries, being always on call for her child. As time passed, I noticed that her child was becoming a little greedy for her mother's constant attention. I remember a play date when I got out the toy horses and set the two children to play. Soon our little visitor wanted my attention. That was when I heard Domenica say, Mommy's writing. No, Domenica did not resent my writing. In fact, before long she began to write herself. As the years passed, the toy horses gave way to journals. She wrote poetry, short stories, brief plays, the very things I had been writing as she played with her golden palomino at my feet. So now we have a worksheet, setting the stage for enthusiasm and exercise. List 5 things you love, such as snow, cherry pie, parrots, daisies, and drumming. How could you share each of these things with your child? For example, snow, you can cut out snowflakes. Cherry pie, you can bake grandma's recipe. Parrots, you can visit a bird store. Daisies, go to the plant store together and buy one daisy. Then come home and draw the flower together. Drumming, make a drum from an oatmeal container. Now choose one item from your list and embark on exploring it with your child. Isolation. Becoming a parent requires us both to add things to and remove things from our lives as we know them. Added to our lives are a crib and changing table, and removed are spontaneous evenings out of and a sleep schedule dictated by our own level of fatigue. Feeling isolated can be a natural part of this transition and is by no means a failing on your part. It's important, however, to make a habit of not isolating yourself. As powerless as we may feel over the great swaths of time alone with our child, we are not actually powerless. Using a few simple strategies, it's possible to protect ourselves from the pain of isolation. And this is important both for our well-being and our children's. Isolation as a parent takes two forms. One is being alienated from friends, and the other being alienated from yourself. When you are able to stay in touch with the many different parts of yourself, then you will be better able to navigate the changing relationships and time alone that you will encounter as a parent. Yesterday, my phone rang. It was a new mother on the other end of the line. Quote, "I just need to hear another adult," my caller explained. "Motherhood getting to you?" I asked. "I'm afraid so," she laughed. "My son is good company, but not all the company I need." My caller was right about that. Like many other mothers, she found herself suffering the pangs of isolation. She also found herself suffering from guilt. "I should be more fulfilled," she said. But even as she focused her time and attention on her child, she found herself still yearning for adult conversation. What she didn't know was that her yearnings and sense of guilt about those yearnings were normal. I couldn't offer to come across the country and babysit for an hour, but I could listen to her for a few free minutes she had. I could understand and relate to her and mirror her feelings back as the same ones I had experienced as a new parent. I could remind her that she wasn't alone. Before my daughter's birth, I made my living as a movie journalist. I would go away on location with a film and spend long days on set, surrounded by the crew. I enjoyed this work and loved being able to ask pointed questions of each crew member. They were all too happy to talk about their jobs, convinced correctly that the film could not be made without them. This was true for lighting, sound, costumes, and many of the varied categories of film expertise. When I became pregnant with Dominica, I found myself feeling out of place. My filmmaker's uniform, blue jeans, and a t-shirt gave way to maternity clothes. Although crew members were chivalrous, I found myself feeling left out. I fought these feelings, but they were there. I had Dominica on Labor Day, our only day off in the 22-week schedule. When the car came to drive me home, daughter in arms, I instructed the driver to take us not home, but to the soundstage at MGM, where Dominica's father was shooting. I showed the baby off proudly. She was a beautiful infant. Soon it was time for my husband and his crew to turn their attention back to filmmaking, and it was my job to take the baby home. I found myself feeling isolated and afraid. Even as Dominica slept soundly in the crib I had carefully prepared for her. My days were now my daughter's days. When my husband came home, I was eager to hear life on the set, and I was keenly aware that my stories of our daughter's day were repetitive. She ate, she slept, she played, and I was. My husband loved our daughter, but he was not spellbound by her antics. As for me, I had lost a role as his playmate. Increasingly, I was mommy, and I missed my former self. When our daughter was less than a year old, my marriage disintegrated. With typewriter and child, I moved into a house of my own. Now I was really isolated. My days consisted of childcare and work. I wrote whenever Dominica was napping or absorbed in her playpen with her toys. Wanting to be a good mother, I made the mistake of thinking motherhood was a job that left no room for me. It was a 24/7 job, I told myself. With a co-parent, this child depended on me and me alone. I had no choice, no other option. Ideas I might have that didn't involve my daughter would just have to wait, be put off or forgotten altogether. Increasingly, I became irritable and discontented. I felt tethered on a short leash. It was then that my friend Juliana McCarthy, older and wiser, instructed me to hire a babysitter and get out of the house on my own. You need to nurture yourself first, she advised me. Taking her at her word, I hired a sitter and took my first break from motherhood. You'll see how much better you feel when you put yourself first, Julia counseled me. I did feel better. I did feel better. I had more patience, more whimsy, more optimism. I was more available to Domenica's feelings, humor, and ideas, as well as my own. And so, a habit of once-a-week solo expeditions and forerunner of artist dates was established. It's important not to let ourselves become household isolation. It's important not to let ourselves become housebound. Isolation leads to depression and feelings of being trapped. Home alone with our child, we may feel disconnected and depressed. And having those feelings while spending time with our beloved child makes us feel guilty. If we were a better parent, wouldn't we be delighted to spend every moment with our child? Morning pages point to our feelings of self-pity. It's common for parents to experience these feelings. Throughout history, new parents were not isolated, living in multi-generational households and tight-knit communities. New parents always had other adults around. Privacy and the nuclear family are relatively new phenomena and come with both benefit and pitfall. A young father in my current Artist's Way workshop in Santa Fe began doing morning pages and quickly discovered that he was stuffing a lot of anger as a new parent. I'm embarrassed to say it, he confided in me, but I envy my single friends. I can't go out with them anymore. I can't stay up late. And I feel like my life is never going to be fun again, at least in the way it was. I can't believe how jealous I am of their freedom. It's common to feel those feelings, I told him, but I suspect that there was more of it than just jealousy about their lifestyle. Is it that you miss them? I prodded. He sighed deeply. Yes, he said. I really miss them. I feel like they have almost turned against me in a way. I need them more than ever now, and I feel like I have them less than ever. Very often, our single or childless friends are threatened by our new parental roles. They feel scared of, even competitive with our children. Used to having immediate access to us, they can become almost hostile when they don't get what they want from us because we are dealing with our kids. It may take a little creativity, but what about trying to bring your friends into your new family, I asked him. Is there a way you can imagine doing that? He thought for a moment and then said, it's really simple, but the thing my buddies and I used to do is get together on Sunday afternoons and watch football. Maybe I'll invite them all over, like old times. If I have to be in the next room tending to the baby some of the time, so be it. I'd still like to have my friends in the house, and maybe they'd like to see what my new life really looks like. A week later, he returned. I had a football party. He grinned at me. My wife and I took turns taking care of the baby. There were some moments when he cries and screamed, but my friends were surprisingly accepting of it. And some of them were just so taken with my son, wanting to hold him. The game was on in the other room, so people could do what they wanted to do. But I realized I haven't lost my friends. They just didn't know how to be a part of my new life. I just needed to invite them in. As time went on, the young father found that he was able to continue his friendships with his old friends and that he made new friends as well. Having kids opened the door to meeting other people with kids, and he found his circle became larger, not smaller, because of it. The use of the 3 basic tools will guide us away from isolation towards connection. It is pivotal that we as parents manage to retain our sense of adventure and that parenting be considered an adventure. The key is to proactively find adventures that get us out of the house and interacting with other people. As we plan and execute outings, we become connected to ourselves, our children, and the world around us. And this is an exercise, artist date. Artist date. All right. One of the basic tools of the artist way is the artist date. A once weekly solo endeavor to do something fun and alone. An artist date is not meant to be high art. It's simply to take yourself out on a date that sounds like an adventure you would enjoy. List 5 outings that might be fun, such as visiting a bakery, getting a manicure with a wild fingernail color, visiting a garden store, going to a basketball game, and attending a concert. This week, hire a babysitter for 2 hours and take yourself on an artist date. Few things connect us to ourselves more than the willingness to take this simple outing. All right, here's another. Now list 5 adventures you could take with your child, choose one together, and take a creative expedition. The safety circle. I remember once telling a friend of mine that I was lonely as a parent, only to realize that it was that friend's harsh judgment of me and my admission of loneliness that made me feel so alone. "Why would you be lonely?" she asked pointedly, "when you are always with your daughter?" I realized there was a pervasive mythology around parenting. The mythology tells us we should be completely fulfilled by our children, and that if we aren't, there's something wrong with us. I had to survey my friends with a discerning eye. Some of them tried to make me feel ashamed of how I felt. It was a rare and valuable friend who could say to me, "Of course you're lonely, I'd be lonely too." As we enter this new stage of life, our identity, as well as our day-to-day routine, is suddenly and drastically changed. My career had been consuming, demanding, and exciting, and it was a shock to me to find myself cast suddenly as mother. Somehow engaged in my pregnancy, it never occurred to me that the baby would be my responsibility forever. But there it was. I was responsible, and my friends needed to adjust as well. Some of them found my new persona difficult to embrace. They missed their hard-drinking, tough-talking colleague. Others of my friends, Juliana McCarthy among them, provided a welcome strand of continuity, remembering the old me while welcoming the new me. I realized that what I needed to do was establish a safety circle, a cluster of friends with whom I could be wholly and candidly myself. I needed to surround myself with those who saw me as mommy, but not just as mommy. I needed to let go of some cherished friendships and find others that could take their place. Some of my new friends were surprising. I'm thinking now of Blair, a confirmed bachelor and playboy. He unexpectedly demonstrated interest in and affection for my daughter. "I'll keep her for a couple of hours," he would volunteer, allowing me to make a dash to the bookstore or film. Always feeling a little guilty that I was playing hooky, but increasingly aware that my windows of freedom were bearing fruit for me in terms of greater patience with my child. A student of mine, Josh, found that by naming and thus becoming conscious of his own safety circle, he was able to better keep the clarity during times of stress. Josh, a lawyer, has a high-powered and time-consuming job in a corporate office. "It's up to me to provide for my family," he says, "but I'm spending long hours away from home. My wife resents it, and I often feel like it's her and our son against me. I'm starting to feel like a stranger in my own home, like I'm not welcome there." Josh reached out to a member of his safety circle on his lunch break, confiding in his friend that he felt a rift growing with his wife. Just telling my friend the truth was liberating. I realized that my wife and I both felt lonely and overworked, and that I needed to reach out to both her and my son. Turning back to the basic tools, Josh took the time to check in with both his wife and child, asking them the highlights of their day. I didn't really want to try it, he confessed, but I promised myself I would do it. Even if I was uncomfortable, I had been pushing her away as much as she had been pushing me away. And we both thought we were doing everything for the family. I think what we really needed was to listen to each other, support each other. Our safety circle can include our spouse or partner, and keeping an open communication builds strength in our relationships with each other and our children. There is a healthy balance of together and alone time that we strive to achieve. In our busy lives, many of us crave creative solitude. Few of us realize how even a little can go a long, long way. Karen and Doug have two beautiful children. Their boys are energetic and demanding. When Karen picks them up from daycare, they have stories to tell, not all of them tattling on each other. Karen takes them home and settles them into the kitchen with a snack of cookies and milk. Next, she settles herself with a notebook and pen. Dating the page, she reviews her workday, taking care to note tasks well done. By the time her children are finished with their snack, Karen has finished her check-in. When Doug comes home, he will focus first on the kids and then on Karen. Dinner is family time, and after dinner, while Doug does the dishes, Karen bathes the kids. Once the kids have been put snugly to bed, they are both able to snatch 15 minutes for themselves. This is time enough for Karen to take a restorative shower or make a phone call, and for Doug to relax with a magazine and his own thoughts. Karen and Doug then take time to check in with each other, making it a point of communicate honestly about where they are in that moment. Because they make their connection a priority, they are grounded and able to be present in their day for themselves, each other, and their children. Sally, a stay-at-home mom, admitted that she felt guilty about spending time with her safety circle. Because her husband earned the family income, she felt that he deserved to have the weekends to relax. But giving her husband the weekends left her on duty 24/7. She hadn't any room for downtime in her very demanding full-time job of raising their children. I'm a member of a bowling league, she told me. We've gotten together every weekend since high school. It's my favorite activity and my favorite group of people. I can tell them anything, but what I've been telling them and myself now is that since I'm the first one of the group to have a child, I can no longer give up time to bowl with them. Is there a daycare center at the bowling alley? I asked. Yes, but I can't leave Sharon there. I can't imagine putting her in a daycare just so I can hang out with my friends and bowl. I think you should try it, I urged her. Just once and see how you feel. Sally came back elated. I don't know who had more fun, she exclaimed. Sharon was obsessed with the daycare and is begging to go back. And I feel like I'd come home, seeing my friends again. It was much needed break and a much needed connection to a group of girls I know I can talk to. Sally shared her excitement with her husband and encouraged her to take a few hours for herself every weekend, and not just a place where she could bring their daughter. I'll take Sharon a few hours each weekend day, he suggested, so you can have a little time for yourself in addition to your bowling. Seeing his wife's happiness at having a chance to connect with her friends inspired him to try to offer her more. And as a bonus, he was able to have important one-on-one time with their daughter as well. I'm a parent too, he told her, and we all need for me to participate. It's good for everyone. At first, Sally was unsure of how to spend her newfound window of time. But she soon found that keeping up her friendships and independent interests was relaxing and rejuvenating and ultimately gave her more energy as a spouse and as a parent. As you look for your safety circle, you will find that there are some old friends and some new friends within it. It's important that the members of your safety circle be able to relate to all of the different parts of you. A quick check-in with people with whom you are able to be completely yourself can give you enormous energy. It's hard to underestimate the importance of just being heard. All right, building the safety circle. An exercise. Make a list of people you can be totally honest with. Call one of them and check in, even for a few short minutes every day. Downtime. I have no time. Like I really have no time. New parents tell me, when we have children, our lives are no longer our own. Focused rightfully on providing for our children many needs, we watch our own needs start to pile up like unattended laundry. Over and over again, we resolve to get to it later, charging on through our day, willing our anxieties away. We focus on what is more important, the child demanding our attention and energy. I love reading, says Todd, an editor. I chose my career based on my love of books. Before I had children, I read a book a week, sometimes two. It was my greatest passion and my guiltiest pleasure. I read new manuscripts for my work and classics for my own enjoyment. My greatest inspiration comes from analyzing and appreciating how different writers choose to use the English language. I would almost call it spiritual practice, but today, as a father with two sons, ages 6 and 8, Todd laments no longer having time to read as he pleases. I haven't opened a classic since I had kids, he said. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I resent that. I'm careful not to take my feelings out on my kids. But every time I look at the untouched book on my bedside table, it's another little reminder that there is no time for my interests anymore. Deciding that there's no time for something we love is a thought that is well worth examining. If we decide that there is no time to read for pleasure because it isn't important, because it would only make us happy, we are deciding that there is no time for ourselves, for our own spiritual balance, and we are making a dangerous decision indeed. Not only are we putting ourselves at risk of becoming resentful, we are modeling this behavior for our children. I come home from work and want to spend time with my kids, says Todd. Of course he does. But all children take naps when they are young, take movie breaks when they are older, become consumed in a project they are focusing on. The trick is to conserve our energy, grab the moments we can, and allow ourselves to spend them as we please. The act of spending time doing something we want to do as opposed to something we have to do takes courage. Baby steps may be necessary here. Be gentle with yourself and be willing to try something small. Giving ourselves even 15 minutes a day that is our own can turn our anxiety into optimism. Our children lie down for a nap and we rush towards the dirty dishes and unopened mail, the business calls that we haven't yet returned. We push our desires away as we push ourselves towards the imaginary finish line of being done with our ongoing list of things to do. It's been said that the average person has 200 to 300 hours of things to do to be caught up. We will never be caught up, but we can adjust our course in small daily ways to bring more balance into our lives. When we allow space for our own desires, we discover the unexpected paradox. By taking a selfish moment, we actually become more productive and more available to our children. What book do you crave to read right now for pleasure? I ask. He looks away, guilty that he craves this luxury, wishing he hadn't admitted it to me in the first place. Moby Dick, he says quietly. But I've read it before. I don't really need to read it again. I'm so behind on everything else, it's ridiculous for me to waste time rereading a book for no reason. My kids need me to be available to them. What do you love about Moby Dick? I prod. I myself have many favorite books that I've read over and over. Each time I read it, I see something new. The larger themes inspire me with their constant relevance. I feel connected somehow. Todd's eyes light up as he speaks. Great, I say. You have to find 15 minutes a day to read Moby Dick. Giving yourself that gift is as important as anything else on your list. Just try for a week and see what happens. When Todd phones me a week later, his optimism is palpable. Palpable. I thought you were crazy, he says, but because you challenged me to try this, I did. Maybe I wanted to prove you wrong, but whatever the reason, I'm so glad I tried it. I smiled to myself, suspecting that his small, selfish act has made a big improvement in his week. First of all, I do have 15 minutes every day, he tells me. I could have promised you I didn't, but it turns out that I do. I might be sleepy or stressed or anxious, but in those moments, I'm not that productive anyway. Todd is correct when we are out of sorts. We are not our best. Trying to cram a business email into a hectic moment. We are impatient with requests, and our impatience is the subtext of what we write. We copy someone we didn't mean to. We call someone by the wrong name. We hit send and then realize error with horror. Meanwhile, we're not available to the child sitting next to us who wants us to look at their drawing or help them choose a shade of blue from the crayon box. Trying to do one more thing, we do much less. I decided that for 1 week I would try this. So every day when I thought I should do the dishes or just get a little bit more work done, I would pick up Moby Dick. At first I felt so guilty, I could hardly focus on it.